Welcome to Takeoff, a Points and Miles podcast by 10X Travel. I'm your host, Bryce Conway. Today, just the two of us, me and Travis. Travis, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm in a little different location in my wife's office today, but got a guest joining me. I don't think you can see the other one right now. Maybe just the spot of her there, but she kind of blends in a little bit. So I guess you can say there's four of us, but I don't know how much talking the dogs are going to do.
Well, hopefully not too much, but I guess the other thing you could guess is that if you are into seeing cute dogs, in addition to our faces here on YouTube as we're doing this, would highly recommend you watch the video version of this on YouTube. For the rest of you, maybe you'll get a hello bark here and there between our discussions around our 2025 points and miles, New Year's resolutions, and game plan, which we're going to get to in just a moment. But before we kick off, a couple quick housekeeping items. First, I want to remind everyone of the exciting news that we have moved our entire 10X Travel course into our free web tool, My 10X, as well as giving it a huge refresh. Combining a bunch of content, the new version of the course is actually shorter than the old one. It's more succinct, it's more effective, and it's right there in the tool that you can use to manage all of your points, miles, cards in one place. More details linked in the show notes or at my.10xtravel.com. And also, if you're still new to points and miles or just want a quick refresher, recommend going back and listening to episodes 1 through 6 of this show where we covered the fundamentals of points and miles. But that takes us to today's episode. We are in full New Year's Day mode. We're recording this right now in December, but we're already talking about our resolutions for next year. We're going to reflect on our 2024 travels and redemptions. We're going to look ahead next year, share some of our points and miles resolutions. We're talking about some mistakes that we made in the past year, things we learned from, things we're hoping to do more of, and the trips that we are excited to book, and the usual fun banter that comes around all of that. At the end of the episode, we would love to hear from you. Help out your fellow 10X Travel insiders plan their next year ahead by telling us about your own points and miles resolutions for 2025. You can do that in the Facebook group, comments of YouTube, or anywhere else that you see fit. We'd love to hear your own thoughts as well. I particularly draw a lot of inspiration from those, and in many cases end up researching trips that I hear people rave about.
Same. I hear people like talk about stuff and I'm like, ooh, I should go there.
I mean, that's one of the hardest things about our job is that we tend to have a lot of points because we've been doing this for a while, and we see people book these incredible trips, and like Friday brag for me is particularly torturous each week, as much fun as it is, but also to see the amazing trips that people booked with pictures and them saying how awesome it was and knowing like I could book that right now. But then it's like going to a restaurant that you love and looking at the menu and seeing like 15 different choices that you would just really enjoy, and knowing that your stomach can only hold one, maybe two if you're feeling ambitious.
I know. I feel like every year my list of places to go gets longer and longer and longer, and I think I'm going to start chipping away at it, but it just doesn't happen.
That is one of the strange observations that I've made as well, is that the more places you travel, it seems like the more places you want to go. Like you never seem to make progress on that bucket list because the list grows at a rate that is like 1.x something times the amount of travel that you do. But the important part is that x, it's greater than 1. So yeah, you never feel complete.
Yeah, and then it becomes this balance of sometimes there's places I want to go back to. So it's how do I balance going somewhere new with wanting to return somewhere.
Exactly. Also a tough one because the more places you go, the more cool experiences you have. But we'll stop complaining now, and we'll get into some of our 2024 in review, lessons, wins, and mistakes. Starting with kind of a quick recap, reflecting briefly on last year's resolutions and how we did. I'll let you kick this one off, Travis. How was 2024 in general? How did you do on those resolutions? What did you learn?
Yeah, my resolutions last year did not go quite as well as I had hoped. My one really big resolution was trying to cut down on my annual fees. I realized they were building up. I did manage to close a few of my higher annual fee cards, but just not as many as I wanted to. I didn't prioritize it, really, is what happened. And I'm able to break even on a lot of them, and some of the ones I was planning to close got some refreshes throughout the year and some new additional credits that actually helped me get more value from them. So I managed to close a few, not as many as I wanted. I'm not that upset about it. We'll see this year in 2025. It's still definitely on my radar, but less of a priority than it was at the start of the year, especially with those refreshes and getting more value from them. Made it harder to justify closing them.
So you're saying that you made a New Year's resolution, it became a bit of a lower priority, you didn't get around to it in the way that you hoped, and that you hope to do it again this next year? That is so strange. You are the only human to follow that pattern. The rest of us just completely stick to our resolutions and live our entire lives to accomplish them.
Yeah, it's a new revolutionary way. Make it a multi-year resolution, and maybe you'll eventually get it done.
There we go. It's not a goal, it's just an aim, which is just a goal without a deadline. I like that. I very much had a similar experience to you. I didn't, I guess, follow through to the degree that I hoped that I would, because I am indeed a human being. But I did also prune my card portfolio a bit. And I think most of it can be looked at through the lens of adjusting my travel and point strategy to be a family of 5 and not like a conventional like solo traveler or like maybe a couple, to where like a lot of those credits, like you mentioned, kind of make sense. You end up carrying a lot of cards because they give you just that slight incremental value each year. Like I'm thinking mostly about like the free night certs from hotels, which I used to use them all the time when I was taking more trips with less travel time and, you know, had the repositioning flights or whatever, had to book like a Marriott or a Hyatt by an airport, and I could always cash those in. But now it's like, all right, even when I'm doing that, I have to have rooms that can accommodate a family of 5. Those are not usually compatible with free night certs. And then all the other kind of little small incremental card bonuses where it's like, yeah, this card has an annual fee of $99 a year, but I might get $120 of value out of it. So I'm going to keep it for that net $30 I expect to gain. But like when you have 5, 6, 7 cards like that, it's like I don't end up doing that. So I pruned quite a few of those. Like it was a bad year to be a co-brand card in Bryce's wallet. Like you were on the chopping block. So I did do some of that, but I guess the biggest one for me that I did stick to and went well was, this was 2024 is my first year without a Southwest Companion Pass in over a decade.
Bold
and I know we
move.
talked about that, pretty extensively on the why I did that on the episode a year ago. But it actually worked out exactly as I thought it would. Didn't end up flying Southwest all that often, mainly because with 5 tickets, like getting one of them for free with Companion Pass was not as like worth it anymore, as you kind of incrementally lose value. And just optimizing for kind of like travel itinerary with kids and layovers and trying to make that as convenient as possible. It just made it less of a concern. And I didn't miss it all that much, although I did kind of accidentally earn a promotional Companion Pass. We'll probably talk about that here in a little bit. Like legitimate forgot that I did that. But yeah, kind of everything was through that lens of your travel style is different now with a family of 5, and like I had to adjust strategy for it, and I did.
You know what would also help you with more convenient itineraries?
I'm listening.
Moving to a better city that's a bigger hub than Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, how long do you have to stay somewhere for it to switch from being repositioning to like moving? Like, you know, it's like that's the ultimate reposition. Like we're just gonna completely move to a hub.
Although the trade-off is, would the time lost from a layover mean more time spent in security? Because every time I come up there, I don't worry about security. I'm going to get through in 5 minutes. Versus here in Houston, there have been times, even with clear and pre-check, where I've stood in the line for 30 or 40 minutes.
I often joke, I have a sister that lives in Manhattan, and I often tell her, like, I think that if we each started at our houses and raced to JFK, I could probably beat her. By going to the Columbus airport, clearing security really fast, flying to JFK in the time it takes to cab, security line, all of that jazz. Like it would honestly be relatively close.
I mean, it always surprises me every time I'm in New York how long, if you're going to Manhattan at least, like how long it takes to get from the airports to Manhattan. So maybe we'll do an episode on that and have y'all do a race and see who pulls the win.
I already have the title for it: Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. We'd be doing the whole race thing. You know, we could get all of us together and spend a couple days just timing those. Boy, that sounds like a lot of fun. I think I'll sit that out, but y'all go right ahead.
If you wanted to definitely give yourself a leg up, if you just do it to Newark, no questions asked, my money's on you.
I totally agree, and I spend a fair amount of time in and around Newark, and will next year as well. We'll get to that. I'm curious, Travis, when you kind of look back on the year like this, or just in general with points and miles, How do you kind of think about auditing your strategy in the past? How much effort do you put into that, and how do you do it?
Yeah, this year became a lot easier. I fully transitioned away from my spreadsheet, which tough for me to do. It's old reliable. I moved myself into my 10x a long time ago, but I never set up my wife's account. And this year, I really found my focus being more on using my P2. I feel that we both go through cycles where I'll be the one's opening card and she's staying dormant, then she's the one opening cards and I'm staying dormant. And this was a much more dormant year for me than it was for her. So when I was trying to decide what cards to get, I decided, let me go ahead, set her up in my 10x, link our accounts so I can just see my P2 from my login. And it just gave me so much more visibility, really gave me the full picture. In fact, I completely forgot about 300,000 miles with one of the banks that were just sitting in her account. I had redeemed the ones that I had earned, but forgot that I had opened that same card for her. And that card, I opened it maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So nice to find this little stash that had just slipped my mind as an additional resource for future bookings.
I did very much the same. Finally set my wife up as the P2 in my 10X. And I tell you, one of the biggest side benefits is like the number of times regularly that I have to like text her to get like a security code. Like, hey, I'm trying to log in and see our points, but like no one's logged into this account in months, and they have to send you a text, and then you have to annoy her with that. That's one of the side benefits of having everything rolling through my 10X. And unfortunately, I did not find a little hidden Christmas gift under the tree of points that I forgot about, but it did certainly make things more convenient. And definitely in terms of analysis too, like kind of looking at like points totals, like where am I at right now versus a year ago, and kind of that influencing earning strategy and like potential redemptions and such. You can just see it all in one place. It was so much easier. So maybe that was my biggest win in 2024.
Yeah. My biggest win, I just had some great trips this year. Australia, New Zealand, the Netherlands, Norway, I think 1 or 2 trips to Mexico. Sure, I'm missing one somewhere, but out to the Marshall Islands. Overall, just got a lot of. I felt like my trips this year were really good. In terms of points, it definitely felt more like a burn year than an earn year, which it's this weird psychological struggle that I've thought about a lot and feel as if COVID has totally skewed my perspective in points and miles. And I'm finally kind of returning to the norm, because during the COVID years, it was a lot of earning without much burning, and I built these large balances. And so now when I'm redeeming those miles and seeing these balances going down but not coming back up, it gives me a little bit of anxiety, really. And despite having, I think, all of my major trips for next year booked already, and knowing that I'll have 12 months to earn more points, it's still just this, my points, I'm using them, where are they going? Which is completely antithetical to what we tell people. So it's been a big practice what we preach year for me, of understanding that it's okay to burn these points. I don't need to hoard them, especially when I find an additional 300,000 that I completely forgot about, and that I've got plenty of points to book trips for the next 2 or 3 years. It's just some of those balances are getting smaller than what I've just gotten used to over the years.
I experienced much of the same. I think a lot of our readers listening to this are in the same spot too. It's like those excess points that a lot of us earned during that COVID period are finally like washing through the system. It's very much like the rest of the financial world at the moment. And what would you say, like the stimmy points? I don't know if we can call them stimmy points because they weren't mailing them out to everyone, but certainly the excess points have come back to earth, and now it's not an indefinite timeline that I'm looking at ahead in terms of how many trips I can book with my existing points. There is a little bit more kind of propensity for action to replenish those balances, even if only for like the vanity of, I don't like logging into my 10X and seeing like my total points less, right? I like to have a nice big cushion there, and it's not quite as big as it was in years past. But I also had a handful of trips that I booked that were wonderful in 2024. But I feel like as we're kind of prepping for this episode, and I'm sure as we kind of go through the rest of this too, It almost feels like a lot of it will be talking kind of a year ahead because like you, I have almost all of my major trips for 2025 already booked and did that kind of by, I don't know, November or so of this year. So in a way, I'm already looking at 2026 right now, which is exciting to be ahead there. Hopefully, get some better award space and be on the ball with booking it. But overall, 2024 is a fantastic year. The highlight was probably a trip to Greece. Flew there on Emirates, Air France there, and I believe Emirates home, and just like had a wonderful time. Points made that happen, and as we were referring to earlier, it makes me just want to go to so many more places in addition to returning to Greece. But it was a great year for me for points and miles and for travel, and 2025 is looking to probably be even better. That's the fun stuff to talk about, but now we go to the more embarrassing stuff. Biggest mistake of 2024. Does anything jump to mind, Travis, that you wish to share with tens of thousands of strangers on the internet?
Yeah, no, but yeah. My biggest mistake this year, this was really a good reflection because I talked about kind of my anxiety with points and miles in terms of the balances going down, but that really did not stick out as my biggest mistake. My biggest mistake was just waiting too long sometimes. I had a number of offers that I should have taken advantage of, but I just overthought it. This included bonus offers on cards that I knew I was eligible for that I just did not, or me or my wife, that I just didn't take advantage of because I overthought it. And I guess I gave myself analysis paralysis on some of those, but it also just applied to booking trips as well. Probably the biggest one is I'm going to Antarctica next year, and we have to get down to Argentina. And award availability to and from Argentina can be very hit or miss, and unfortunately for our dates, it's been pretty miss. I'd been searching, which is one of the advantages of planning farther in advance, is I have that time for availability to come up. And a good option on LATAM opened up from Santiago, Chile, not Argentina, but a pretty easy repositioning flight, if you will.
Or we can just move there.
Yeah, or we can just move there.
Just saying.
Yeah, 2 business class seats from Santiago to JFK on LATAM opened up. I overthought it. I overthought that repositioning thing, which I've done many times. I've repositioned to other countries. I've repositioned within the US. It's not a big deal to me, but I overthought it. And by the time I decided I was ready to book it, I went and the availability was just gone.
I had written down pretty much the exact same thing of just kind of waiting. I guess 2 things: waiting a little bit too long to book some of 2025's trips for many reasons, like you mentioned, kind of find award space that's pretty good. I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go home tonight and confirm these dates with my wife, make sure it's not summer camp or the many other things that, having kids introduces to your schedule. And in multiple instances, it's like, oh, okay, looks like that's going to work. I'm going to hop back in and check, and it's gone.
Yeah.
So ran into a couple of those. And of course, there's certainly more issues there when you have those additional moving parts with family travel. But I just wasn't as on the ball as I normally am with booking way in advance. And I also think that I was a little bit feeling too comfortable with my points balances from the kind of COVID era. Like, you know what? Like 2024 was one of the best years that I can remember in this hobby in over a decade of doing this, of just card offers and the ability to earn points with them. It was incredible. New ones launching all the time. It's as if banks got together and decided, like, let's make this our year for big bonuses. And I was a little too slow on some of those, or I guess I could have been faster, just because I'm sitting there looking at my points balances thinking, yeah, I'm pretty good. I don't know if this is going to drive me to action here. And now sitting here, of course, I wish it did.
I'm curious because reflecting on it, I feel as if what gave me some of that hesitation is I finally, I think I only have some Virgin Atlantic points left as the only points that I transferred to a partner pre-COVID, had to book some trips and ended up having to cancel them. So those are my only remaining kind of orphaned points. And these opportunities, I'm telling myself, yeah, I can cancel, pretty much get my points back. But it's the fact that I'm going to have to transfer my transferable points to a fixed program. And it took 2 to 3 years to finally redeem all of those that I had transferred over time, that the idea of getting points restuck in a program just Like that was what I think drove it. And I'm curious if you felt similar.
I thankfully was able to avoid that situation by happenstance because we had our second daughter in the summer of 2020, so I had already kind of scaled back on travel plans, so I didn't have a lot of things to cancel when COVID kind of came onto the scene. And at this point, I do think I am completely done with any orphan points, but now I'm questioning if I have like your situation with the 300,000 miles that are sitting out there somewhere. Now I'm wondering, are there any piles of miles that I forgot about? But I don't think so. But I'll have
Piles
to do a quick
of miles.
Piles of miles. I'm gonna go buy that domain. Yeah, I'm kind of worried because I feel like the spam filters in email have gotten much more aggressive. So now like I often don't see like notice like miles expiring or things like that. So in some ways I'm almost tempted not to go looking because I don't want to find an email from 6 months ago like your 200,000 miles have expired and you can pay us a lot of money to get them back, or you can say goodbye.
Yeah,
that would be disappointing.
Yeah.
But I think I'm all set there. Thankfully, I feel very well organized, and we'll kind of as we transition here. Next question is gonna be biggest lessons learned. I'll start first because this kind of transitions right into my lesson learned here, in that I am becoming almost entirely a flexible or transferable currency guy, mainly because of like my travel habits right now. Family of 5, it's much harder to earn enough miles like with a particular airline program for 5 people, especially if we're talking about like an American Airlines where it's harder to earn their miles. If you have kind of a nice ratio of number of people earning versus redeeming, you can make that work because everyone can kind of open cards and earn enough points to book something. But I can't do that now. Even if my wife and I really focus on that program, earn as many miles as we can, might get enough for 3 tickets, maybe 4. But tacking on that last one, paying cash, especially if you're trying to fly premium cabin, is very, very painful. And it just causes me to shy away from those programs and go entirely focused on transferable currencies, and often planning on redeeming through the portal just because that's really the best option for us. But I'm curious, what are some of the biggest lessons you learned in 2024?
Mine's simple. I just need to stop overthinking my decisions and accept that.
Are we still talking about points and miles or in general? Because that sounds like a great resolution in general, but
yeah, maybe both, but I'll tee it up as for points and miles and just stick with stop overthinking it. Things are cancelable. If I transfer to the right programs, then I know that I'll eventually be able to redeem those points. And I just need to stop overthinking. I need to practice what we preach. Stop overthinking it. It doesn't have to be harder than it seems.
Very good. And maybe by doing that, that'll incentivize you to jump on offers faster because your points balances will dwindle that much quicker. Win-win. How about resolutions? Points and miles resolutions for 2025. Other than it sounds like stop overthinking it might be top of the list, but what other goals do you have, like specific redemptions, statuses you want to earn, anything at all for 2025?
Yeah, I definitely have a few resolutions for 2025. My first one, and I'm gonna preface this so that way when we're doing this episode next year and people are flaming me in the comments for never accomplishing my resolutions, they at least know in advance that this one is a tentative. It's a maybe. A big maybe for 2025 is going for Globalist with Hyatt. I want to, just give the context for people of how we've talked about not necessarily pursuing status. It's not always worth it. In my case, it is. I have a few Hyatt stays planned next year. But one of the big reasons why I really want it is we're considering late next year or possibly 2026, which is why this might get delayed, a return to the Park Hyatt in the Maldives, where that globalist status could get us some decent upgrades, but really it just comes down to the free breakfast. The free breakfast there, I think last time we were there, it was maybe like $50 per person per day. And that adds up pretty quickly, especially when they throw on the taxes to it as well. So the savings that I can get from that can definitely outweigh it. And I think I'll organically be moderately close next year. So either next year or 2026, planning to get it in order to supplement some of these bigger trips I'm wanting to take where the status with Hyatt would really, really come in handy. The second outline is, despite my anxiety around transferring points, I actually feel as if my flexible points are in a pretty good spot.
Especially when you find 300,000 of them that you didn't know you had.
Especially when I find 300,000 of them that I didn't know I already had. Really, if there's one program whose miles I like that are challenging to earn, although it sounds like this is changing maybe 2025, 2026 with an enhanced bank partnership, is American Airlines miles. I've cycled through them through the years, and this is one program where I find a lot of value in American Airlines miles, but I have to be intentional about earning them because I can't transfer to them. So I definitely think there's going to be some focus this year on earning some additional American Airlines miles. And my last one, and haven't checked with my wife on this one, but I think that she'll be okay with it, is to book a Japan trip for 2026. We've put it off for a while. It got canceled in 2020 and in 2021. And so we prioritize other places, but Japan's a destination we've wanted to go for a long time. And so I'm planning on booking it for 2026. So that way we can finally get there for the first time.
Wonderful. And there's some fantastic products that fly there that we're going to get into. But I love those resolutions. I want to make them my own as well. But as we talked about earlier, more places that we want to go than places that we can go. But I love all of those, especially the Hyatt Globalist. That's one that we hear from a lot of readers every year, because it is actually somewhat attainable for folks with the right strategy and a little bit of Hyatt stays planned. And when you get it, it's pretty incredible, as many of us get to experience through the guest of honor programs and just getting to kind of sample it for a little bit. It's like, ooh, I want more of that, please.
Yeah, it's one that isn't quite as attainable, at least for me, year after year after year. So I have to be very intentional about earning it and timing it to where it can overlap with the stays that I want to take advantage of. So it's feeling like the right time, either the coming year, 2025, or 2026. So don't hold me to it next year if I don't do it.
So noted. And for me, I have a few of them. I guess I'll start with one that's an overlap with yours, and that's Hyatt Globalist. I think that is doable for me in 2025. I do have 2 Hyatt stays already booked in the first 2.5 months of the year, both of which like a little bit longer than usual for this day. So I'll have a nice jump start on Hyatt points, and I think that if I kind of tailor my strategy, I can get to a place where I can actually achieve Globalist, and I feel like that's a huge benefit, especially traveling with a family, with the breakfasts and the ability to upgrade to rooms that are a bit more comfortable for more travelers. That would be an incredible win for me, and I am reasonably confident that I'll be able to do that. The next one I had was I really love to fly my parents in international business class. This is something I've been wanting to do really since getting into points and miles. You know, I feel like I've done a lot of it myself. Of course, that's, you know, seen by other people, including my parents. They think that looks pretty neat. They're never going to ask, but I would love very much to be able to take them on just the best product that I can take them on, almost regardless of where we go, just to see that sharing of this wonderful hobby with others. And the last one I had is I want to fly my family to Dubai for spring break 2026. And for this one, I have to give a special shout out to the YouTuber or the YouTube channel Like Nastia. My girls just love that channel right now. It's this it's kind of all about this girl. I think she's probably about like 7, 8, 9 years old, going all around the world, kind of doing all these cool things. But she has this episode on Dubai, which could not be a better commercial for family travel to Dubai, where it's like goes to all these amusement parks and does this like mermaid makeup experience, and like the hotels and pools all just look incredible. And immediately my girls are like, can we go there? Can we go there? And I just look and I was like, actually, yes, that sounds quite enjoyable. Like, I think we can make that happen. So I want to fly there, of course, do it in premium cabin on one of the really high-end airlines if we can, and have some time to make that happen. And thankfully, with all of 2025's trips planned, can really focus on trying to book that here in the spring of 2025 for travel in 2026. And then just kind of some smaller ones that I have almost every year. Cutting down on annual fees, it don't make sense. I feel like I have to go back through and kind of refresh every now and then with many of those situations like I described earlier, where I'm paying a fee, I'm expecting to get maybe a little bit more value than the fee in return, but when you do that enough times, you don't end up capturing all that value. So I need to simplify that a bit. Otherwise I think points like earning-wise strategy, I'm pretty comfortable with my approach. No need for a resolution there for next year. How about any unconventional resolutions for next year? Anything come to mind for you?
I'm. I would say that mine is a little bit of a mindset shift. So it's really funny hearing you talk about like flying your parents on the best international business class or one of the awesome products to Dubai. I'm really kind of leaning in to stop worrying about getting the absolute best experience, particularly when I'm flying. There's some fantastic products out there, but at the end of the day, like I certainly, if it's a long haul flight, still want to be in business class, but I'd rather take the trip and not get the absolute best experience possible than not take the trip. And it's something I started leaning into this year. It's something that I think some people will resonate with. Some people, I think, especially those newer to Points and Miles, will hear and wonder why. But the benefit of doing this for, almost 10 years now, is I've gotten to experience a lot of those. And I've gotten to experience some of the bad ones too. And what I've realized is the discrepancy between like a bad business class and a really good business class is not nearly as big as people make it out to be. Like, yeah, there's a difference, and you get off a really good one almost feeling like refreshed with how great of an experience it was. But when you get off of we'll call it a mediocre one, you're still feeling better than if you flew economy, which I know I'm way too spoiled, but I'm really just kind of leaning into that and just enjoying the experience I'm given and just kind of rolling with the punches a little bit more. It makes my travel a lot less stressful. It makes it easier to make those decisions, and just focus on the trip that I want to take rather than all of the minute details of the quality, particularly of the flights.
Yeah, it's like kind of more pragmatic approach, and less of like a chase the shiniest object approach.
Yeah.
Focusing more on the trip or on like the broader trip itself and making it happen than on going for the gram, I guess would be how the kids say it these days. But I completely agree with that as well. And I do feel like that kind of is a pretty typical path that we see folks follow in Points and Miles. Usually you enter and you think that anyone who spends like kind of 2 to 3x on business or first class instead of economy is crazy. Like, oh, I would rather have more travel. And then I'd say probably 70% of people end up getting to a point where they try it once, business or first, and they're like, okay, now I get it. And then they start optimizing for exactly what we were just talking about. Well, if I take one extra stop, I can actually fly on like the newer plane, and that would be super cool. And like, I want to experience that. And then you spend, I don't know, a few years there. Maybe some people spend the rest of their points hobby there. And then finally, some folks make that transition to more of a balanced approach, like a pragmatic, like, yeah, like, I could fly on this super premium product at a saver level if I get myself to Sydney, Australia, and then take that flight to Hong Kong. And I had no desire to visit either of those places, but I'm going to do it because I found saver space, and then kind of coming back around to where do I want to go? And is this going to be good enough for me to redeem my points? And I'm very much transitioning into that space as well. But I like that very much. I had a couple myself here, and the first is almost kind of humorous, but it's becoming more serious for me. And it is to, I need to try to level expectations with my kids. Like, we've spent a fair amount of time taking them on like fancy flights and showing them all the wonderful world of Points and Miles and premium cabin travel. And that has almost become like a baseline for them. And I need to try to get them to understand, this is not normal. Like, we're very fortunate to have this. A lot of people don't. Like, this is wonderful to enjoy, but this should not be the expectation, and we should cherish it when we do it. But also just to kind of understand like how fortunate we are to be in that situation, and that sometimes we're still going to be flying economy. We're going to San Diego in January and had two choices of roughly equal points value: Southwest economy or one stop on domestic first product. Went with economy, and this was the kind of the tipping point for me. I was like, you know what, this is a chance to kind of have that experience as well, and remind them this is what kind of the baseline should be. And then the second one I have is and this is kind of more from the like as a teacher of Points and Miles, but leaning into more of like the psychological aspects of learning points and miles, in that it's not all just this rational game. I think kind of a similar path that a lot of folks follow. You come into this, you assume everyone's kind of hyper rational. It's a lot of math. It's kind of like optimizing for the value of your points. I don't understand why people don't just do these things because they're rational. And like here we are on a New Year's resolutions episode talking about how we didn't do the things that we preach sometimes. And I think we need to lean even more into that of how people think about points and miles being applied to their lives, the certain like kind of stumbling blocks a lot of people run into and really can cause them to overthink, like you mentioned, or can cause them to make less optimum choices because they're trying to really optimize for something that shouldn't be the primary thing, right? They're going for cents per point. They're going for what looks best in the pictures instead of trying to make points and miles kind of fit into the rest of their life and be okay with that. And I want to lean more into that to, if you're a listener out there who's in this situation, know that like I see you. I guess right now I literally don't see you, but I acknowledge that there's a lot of you in that space. I'd say most people are in that spot, and we need to kind of lean into that being totally okay, and how to kind of balance all these many things to really make points and miles have the best impact on your life as a whole, and not just optimizing for this one little hobby at the expense of other things. So those are my unconventional resolutions. I guess did I miss any from you? That was my entire list for the unconventional ones.
No, that was my list. I made one resolution that wasn't unconventional last year and didn't meet it, so trying not to set myself up for failure.
You did a good job of prefacing that this time with the hey, if I don't make Globalist, it's okay. So I guess you could add another unconventional resolution to your list, and that is be okay with the outcome of your resolutions, even if you're sharing them much more publicly than most people would.
Yeah.
I'll add that one for you.
But we'd love to hear from you. So if you're on YouTube, seeing this on Instagram, Facebook, wherever you're seeing this, if there's a place to leave comments, drop your resolutions in the comments below. We'd love to kind of see what other people are thinking. Make fun of ours. Tell us how ridiculous some of them are. And share with us.
Please do. And actually, as I'm scrolling through the notes here, I missed one, and I want to share this as one that others can also do as well, trying to combat my whole I have enough points, I don't put as much thought into chasing these big bonuses. I'm going to shoot for at least one new card per quarter per person. One for me, one for player two. I'm happy to be flexible on that for it to be kind of like a rolling quarter type of average, but I think that that's a nice pace or benchmark to ensure that I don't get a little bit too complacent with my points values and just kind of keep going out and earning, and knowing that the points I'm going to earn now are probably going to be fueling my 2027 travels at this point. Kind of like future me will be very grateful if I stick to that. That's how resolutions work. And it just seems like a very easy and achievable goal for just about anyone here in the hobby. So that's a nice pace benchmark to stick.
I mean, I think that's smart. If you think about it, I think that some people, especially people who are newer, might think that we're traveling all the time. I think that we're fortunate enough to get to travel a little bit more than most people, but we're not jet setters. Bryce is in Ohio right now. I'm in Texas, where it's like 60 degrees outside in December and wonderful. For now, it's supposed to freeze tomorrow, but the point is, at the end of the day, I think a lot of our audiences, for those of you out there, I think your travel plans probably, and the quantity of trips that you take are probably not that far off from ours. We're not travel influencers who are traveling to all these different hotels and stuff to review them. Like, we're lucky to get to share this with you and do this for our jobs, but I think you'd be surprised that most of our travel habits are probably still pretty similar to yours, especially Bryce, because he's got kids in school and having to work around school schedules and time off. There's that just simply doesn't work for taking 12, 15, 20 trips a year. And this idea that just earning one card per quarter per person, if you have a P2, is generally enough to sustain that, is not really that far off. That's 8 cards for your family a year. If that's even 50,000 points each, that's 400,000 points. that's with the right programs, that's 4 or 5 round trip business class tickets to Europe, which is your entire family. So for most people, a kind of simple strategy like that can actually go really far on helping you accomplish your travel goals for a long time.
Completely agree. And I do think we should acknowledge that the two of us seem to be also in kind of a similar phase of the hobby that a lot of people reach, where you've had a few years to do this, and like the points accumulate over time, and you do reach a place where you're kind of working from ahead. You know, all the points that you were earning in 2020, 21, 22, there's still kind of like remnants of those that kind of carry over. And now you kind of work from a position where like you have a lot of options. But I do want to say, like, for those of you who are listening who are a little bit newer to the hobby, maybe you haven't had as much time to earn, it's not the expectation that you adopt this mindset as well, because you're probably still in that early phase of taking like as many trips as you can, doing like the weekend trips abroad, you know, feeling a little bit of anxiety about like the amount of points that you have because you haven't had the time to earn them. That is a bit of a different mindset, but do know that it is a beautiful thing when you get to the position that we're in. It almost feels like, you know, there's like the FIRE movement in personal finance, you know, financial independence, retire early, like kind of save all of your money and then kind of let it work for you as you go. Points and miles does have a little bit of that component as well. We'll call it PIRE, points independent. The retire part doesn't quite work out, but you know, to where like you can be a little bit more selective. You kind of like rest on the fact that you have some points assets to work with, and things do become a bit easier, both in terms of strategy around earning, as well as when you go to redeem, just because you have that kind of organic spend and points that add up over time. So now we did just talk about how like, hey, we don't travel as much as you might think, but here in this next part, we're actually going to both tell you how we're not going to be in America when this episode drops. So let's talk about trips that we're planning for 2025, and I'll let you start off on this one, Travis.
Yeah, definitely a little bit of travel whiplash here from what we said. I've got 3 big trips planned next year, which, like I said, I think most people take 1 or 2. I'm fortunate enough to be able to plan 3. So it's, like I said, it's not like I'm taking 10, 15, or that I'm out of the country 10 months out of the year. The first one that I'm taking is I'm going to the Seychelles for the first time, which I believe I'll be there when this episode goes live. So I'll have to check out your comments when I get back. We're staying at the new Waldorf Astoria there. It's 120,000 Hilton points per night, but this is a real life example of how I've talked about transferring certain points to Hilton can actually be a really good value. That works out to 480,000 points every 5 nights because you get that 5th night free. And so I didn't do good math here, but with a transfer bonus, I was able to take advantage of that. That worked out to a little less than 40,000 points per night that I had to transfer, which is just crazy in my opinion. So it's a real life example of how you can take advantage of transfer bonuses to programs who on face value 120,000 points per night is a lot, but this transfer bonus let me get a lot more value from my points, and that value means I had to transfer fewer points to do it. I actually spent more on my flights there. I think I'm flying Ethiopian Airlines there, not known to be a fantastic business class, but the availability was there. I used 88,000 United miles to book it there. That one Bryce would never take his family on, not because it's Ethiopian, but because I'm going Houston to Atlanta, overnighting in Atlanta, Atlanta to Ethiopia, Ethiopia to the Seychelles. So that would definitely not be an ideal route
of travel. Yeah,
I think, yeah. And I booked Emirates business class back. I don't remember how many points it was. I had some orphaned from a previously canceled Emirates booking, so I honestly didn't pay that much attention. I had the points in there. It covered it. So I'm good to go. I am hoping for first class to open, mostly because my wife has never flown Emirates first class, and she makes sure that I know that. So if it does and there's only one seat, it's hers. And that's a resolution that you can't hold me to.
Otherwise, you can't record from her office anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Another trip that I booked is I'm going to Antarctica for the first time. Um, it's one of those that has been on our bucket list for a long time, but as much as Points and Miles makes almost the entire world not a once in a lifetime destination, Antarctica is one that I've always said might actually be a once in a lifetime opportunity. And so I wanted to be able to scuba dive there. And there's not a ton of operators that let you do that. One of my friends put together a trip, and so we're going to Antarctica. Obviously, the Antarctic part is not booked with points, but our flights there and back are.
And to be clear, they're not being Antarctica, they're being Argentina. I don't know if you can actually fly to Antarctica with points.
No. Yeah, you have to get to Argentina. So we've got our flights to Buenos Aires, and then we will essentially reposition down to Ushuaia. I hope I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm not. But we booked Aeromexico business class down there from Mexico City. Yes, I have to reposition to Mexico City. I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, as it's sometimes this international repositioning is overlooked. But my alternatives were 1, 2, or sometimes even 3 stops. So repositioning to Mexico City, I've done it before. It's pretty easy for me from here in Texas. It was technically 100,000 Aeromexico points per person, but with another transfer bonus, it cost me less than 70,000. Worked out great. The Aeromexico website was not the best to navigate, but I figured it out and got it booked. And finally, from my return, I overthought it. And so I finally just booked Copa Airlines back, which was 88,000 United miles per person. Again, I'm not super excited about Copa, but from the flights we chose are on their planes that actually have lie flat seats, as long as they don't get a product change, which I just knocked on wood for. Again, like, it's not the flashiest product. It wasn't what I really wanted, but it works out. So, and then finally, we're going to Italy and Ireland in the summer. I took advantage of an American Airlines web special for flights there, 50,000 points in business class. So I'm going Houston to Philadelphia, Philly to Milan. 50,000 business points, or 50,000 American Airlines points in business class, kind of hard to beat. That's what finally depleted my AA miles. So time to rebuild those.
And props to you for you had an AA booking to Europe that didn't have to go through Heathrow and pay like $1,200 in taxes and fees.
I know.
On that booking.
I know. I saw it and I was like, I didn't even know that AA flew from Philly to Milan. So that works great. Yeah. I was looking for Air France or KLM and repositioning within Europe over to Milan, but this worked out really great for us. It's apparently a Hilton year for us because I also booked the Grand Hotel Victoria. It's part of the small luxury hotels of the world. Used to be bookable with Hyatt. Now SLH is under Hilton. A lot of people were kind of bummed about this, but again, took advantage of that transfer bonus. What's normally, I believe it was, I don't remember if it was 100,000 or 120,000 points per night. But if it was 120, again, 40,000 points per night with the transfer bonus. And that's before considering the 5th night free. Add that in and it's in the 30,000 point per night range. Hotel on Lake Como in the summer, which is like 2,500 euro a night. Even if it transferred 1-to-1, it's still a great deal. And then getting back, I'm flying Finnair's new business class, which I've heard mixed things on. People seem to either love it or hate it, but again, it worked out with my itinerary. I am looking for other options because it's not the perfect flight option for me, but I learned my lesson about overthinking and I saw the availability, so I just went ahead and booked it.
Yeah, I was about to say, you've almost already put the plans in place to accomplish your resolutions before the year started. I heard a couple of kind of acceptance of pragmatic bookings that worked for you, and you're doing trips that are not the easiest ones to put together just because they're a little bit more, I don't know, off the beaten path, if you will, destination wise. So I think that even if you don't take any additional action, you're going to get a long way toward that resolution. And you also, there was one other kind of common thread here. You mentioned that it's going to be a Hilton year for you, but there's actually one additional component that touches all of your trips that I just heard. Do you know what it is?
That my wife is coming on all of them?
Well, yes, I guess that's kind of a given. Your resolution is to not upset your spouse. But you absolutely crushed transfer bonuses.
Oh,
All
yeah.
of your trips had pretty substantial transfer bonuses, and then you're layering on fifth night free and stuff. Boy, I think 2024 might go down as the year of the transfer bonus. But that was, well, you put together some amazing trips for next year. I'm excited for you.
Yes, I'm excited.
You should be. Yeah, I'll share a few of my own. We're going to be in Italy at the same time, but we're going to be on literally the opposite sides of the country. And Italy is not a small country. We'll do that in a minute. The next trip coming up for me, I'm going to be in Portugal when this episode drops. Just doing a quick kind of winter break trip with the family. We are flying on TAP to and from in business class for 60,000 Air Canada miles per person each way. We have to go out of Newark, and actually going to be kind of fun. We are actually flying out of Newark. I think our plane takes off like just before midnight on New Year's Eve. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe based on our path, we might be able to like see Times Square happening while the ball is dropping. I thought that'd be kind of neat.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, my daughters are super excited about that. We're just going to spend a few days over there in Porto. Not a lot of great like award hotel options over there at the time. We paid cash for, I forget exactly where we're staying, but it works. It was good. I actually went through our luxury hotel program at 10X, which makes that so much easier, especially when you're looking in Europe for rooms that can accommodate families of 5. So spending a few days over there, business class, not like your trips, not like the most fantastic product, but direct from Newark makes a big difference. And we're just taking a United flight to position on both ends there, which was a cheap cash booking.
Well, and we know now that it's faster. Well, we haven't confirmed it, but our suspicion is it's faster to get to Newark from Columbus than it is from Manhattan anyways.
And I could totally rig this. I could make the competition happen on my trip, like New Year's Eve. Like, how long do you think it would take to get from Manhattan to Newark on New Year's Eve? I'm guessing that's going to be a little bit longer than usual based on everything that's going on in New York. But yeah, so Portugal right off the bat, doing spring break at Baja Mar in the Bahamas. We're actually going back. We were there last spring break and loved it so much, just immediately decided, like, let's do this again. Such a perfect spot for families. I think I did actually a portal booking on to and from premium economy on American Airlines, one stop from Columbus, Charlotte, Nassau. Rates were pretty reasonable, especially for spring break time frame. And I did find myself in that same situation where it's like the best routes are all on American Airlines. Like, I can't earn enough American Airlines points for 5 because of their limited card selection, at least until what's coming with the new bank partner, of course. But going to be there for about a week. And just if you are listening to this and you have a family and you're looking for like kind of all the conventional things that you'd want in a spring break trip, I know I've said this on many episodes before, but Baja Mar has them, right? It's on the beach. So you have a beach. There's a huge water park next door. I mean, massive, like biggest water park I've ever been to. Kids absolutely love that. There's like 8 restaurants on site, everything from like a pizza joint to like some high-end food that you know, maybe the parents can get out for a bit. They have a kids club. They have a casino. They have babysitting services. They have activities for the kids. It's just absolutely perfect, and you can book it for about 20,000 Hyatt points per night. There's there are some kind of fees on top of that are certainly not you know, a casual like checkout fee. Like, oh, okay, cool. There's a few $100 in fees, but for what you get, absolutely incredible, and really looking forward to going back there again. And then our big trip is going to be to Sicily, to Italy. Sicily is the island that the boot is kicking. If you're looking at the map, we're going to be there for almost 2 months. In an Airbnb, had to pay cash for that. But for flights, we did on the way over. We booked through Air Canada. We're flying Lufthansa business class. We have to position to Newark again, which again, maybe I should just move to Newark. I'm going to be spending quite a few nights at that airport Marriott. That's like right, you can like see it from the terminal and almost walk there. We're going to be flying over on Lufthansa business class, and that was kind of leaning into the pragmatic bookings that we've talked about as well. Had plenty of better options in terms of product. Like Lufthansa business class is just okay, not very private at all. The food is okay, like it's fine, but award space is pretty easy, and most importantly for me, that's one of the few business class products that is easy to fly with kids because your seats are right next to each other, like your feet almost touch. Which if you're a solo traveler or not traveling with kids, that's not great. But if you have to be able to assist your kids during taxi takeoff and landing, it's incredible. And of course, for I think it was like 66,000 Air Canada miles like that.
Oh,
that's awesome.
That's not bad.
Yeah. And we're flying to Munich, kind of the repositioning thing too. It's like, just get me across the Atlantic. The flight from Munich to down to Sicily, we paid cash. It was like $200 each. Easy to do, 2-hour flight, optimizing for flying over the ocean. I think we're flying Delta home on a portal booking. Cash rates were not outrageous, like got it with points through the portal. And I think we're flying business class on that one. So that's just in the first half of the year. I'm sure I'll tack on another one late just because I get a little, like
antsy.
Travel anxious. Yeah, antsy. Points start adding up, especially if I stick to my 1 per quarter goal. But that's what 2025 is looking like for me for trips, as well as a slew of domestic stuff.
It's funny how your perspective of, for how we're both looking at these products, me with Ethiopian and Copa, you with Lufthansa, that are not considered some of the better options, and how it's just a different perspective that led us there. Mine is, I'd rather go to the Seychelles and fly Ethiopian in business class than not go. And for you, it's, the 2 seats next to each other is something that kind of is viewed typically as outdated, but with kids actually is a benefit. So it's just so funny how for both of us with different kind of travel profiles, we've come to the same conclusion in different ways. Yeah,
agreed. And I'm sure many listening are probably have done the same and may feel a little bit of kind of anxiousness around that. Like, am I doing this right? Like, yes, you are. This is how we do it too. It's very natural to get to that spot, and it works best. Yeah. One more section before we kind of wrap up this episode. Yeah. These are always fun. Predictions for 2025. Travis, what sorts of bold predictions are you looking to share about points and miles in 2025?
I think that this one's going to feel bold, but not too outlandish. I think we're going to see some competition from Air Canada and maybe the U.S. airlines on award pricing between North America and Europe for the better. With the Air France and Virgin Atlantic improvements to their award pricing, I'm curious to see if there's some more hunger for some of the North American airlines to recapture some of that market share. Specifically, I lean more towards Air Canada as a likely option than the U.S. airlines, just because I think the U.S. airlines have the benefit of we're in our points and miles bubble. And for us, we're willing to look at other options, but people who aren't doing points and miles are redeeming their miles with the airline they fly the most, which, usually business travelers and stuff. So I think we're less likely to see it a little bit from the U.S. airlines. But I think that Air Canada would be my guess as to any that would really lean in this direction. I don't think Delta will, particularly because Delta, I'm pretty sure they have an ownership stake in both Air France and Virgin Atlantic, so they're probably somehow benefiting from this anyways. To be clear, I don't think there's going to be a big award chart shift, but I could see things more American could do more web special awards, like I found to Europe, or United could do some additional flash sales to Europe to try to recapture some of those travelers that they might be losing to Air France and Virgin Atlantic. So my bold prediction is a hopeful improvement in award pricing between US and Europe as airlines are trying to recapture market share that they've lost to some of the European airlines.
Yeah, I feel like there's got to be folks sitting at every major airline around the world looking at what Air France and Flying Blue have done over the past 18 months with just crushing it with amazing award availability and pricing and transfer bonuses and connecting to all the transferable programs. They're saying, wow, how can we do more of that? And I completely agree. That's a wonderful prediction. Take it to the bank. That's definitely going to happen. Heard it here first.
Bryce is committing me to this one now.
I am. Yeah. We're not going to overthink it though. I have a couple here to drop myself. The first, not entirely points and miles related, but definitely going to impact us. And the first one is that I think that Thailand is going to become the new it destination after White Lotus season 3 drops. I think that a lot of people underweigh the impact of like a destination kind of becoming culturally prominent through media like that. And White Lotus being just such an incredibly popular show, they film it at 4 seasons every time. Like it's almost as if, like, I wouldn't be shocked if it kind of came out like, oh, it turns out the entire time this was being funded by travel industry, or particularly 4 seasons, because like that is the best commercial you can have. But when those tend to happen, we see on our end like a lot of travel preferences shift to kind of do that sort of thing. And I realize I'm saying that as someone who's traveling to Sicily next summer, which is where White Lotus season 2 was filmed. I didn't realize that until I booked it. But I think that's going to kind of put it on the radar. And the fact that Thailand is very doable points and miles, tons of airlines fly there, I think that that's going to become a little bit more competitive. So if you're sitting here listening and thinking, oh yeah, I was thinking about planning a Thailand trip, I think that you would do best to try to book that before that season drops in the spring, because that's going to really change travel preferences. And then second is kind of more of a realization that I've had, is that I think that Hyatt Globalist might become a little bit more exclusive and therefore more valuable as all of the built folks roll off. Like Hyatt Globalist got completely flooded with new folks thanks to like the amazing build promotion that was, I think it was like a year ago right now when this episode dropped. And a lot of those folks are going to be losing their globalist status. I'm sure some will requalify, but not nearly as many as who were able to take advantage of that. And then we'll hopefully see fewer issues where you check in and it's like, yeah, there's no upgrades available because there's like 15 other globalists here right now. Like, so thanks for being a top tier member, and say hi to everyone else. And I think that the ones who do get it are going to see a little bit more value out of that, more upgrades, and just kind of get more out of it in general. So part of me is a bit excited about that, as we both are pursuing globalists in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the globalist exclusivity is one of the biggest benefits of it over its competitors. You can get platinum with Marriott with a card. It's not their highest. The equivalent would, I guess, probably be titanium, but a lot of the platinum benefits overlap as well. You can get Hilton Diamond with a card. And so Hyatt Globalist is the kind of last remaining major hotel chain's top tier status that you truly have to earn. And yeah, some of their cards can help you get there faster, but at the end of the day, you have to earn it. So I definitely think seeing some of these promotions disappearing, which probably means right once we're done recording this, we're going to have an email seeing that there's a brand new globalist promotion from Built.
Wouldn't be sad about that.
But yeah, I think that it's already the most valuable, and some of those falling off, I'd agree with that one. Thailand, I can see that one. I'm gonna counter a little bit on just that I think we're still seeing such a huge demand for Japan travel. I definitely think that Thailand is going to pick up a little bit with this, but I'm going to be contrarian and say that Thailand, probably some slightly increased demand, but maybe not as much as you expect. I might be wrong.
How will we measure this? I don't know, but
yeah.
I guess we
well,
could pull
next year one of us will be right. So
there we go. We'll have to reader vote, as we tend to like to do. I'll also throw in one more prediction that kind of just came to mind. It wasn't even in my notes here, but hearing you kind of describe your bookings over the past year reminded me of a trend that we're seeing like crazy, and that is like the rise of kind of like point sales and transfer bonuses. I feel like a couple of years ago it used to just be like pretty known and conventional. Like, here's how many points you can expect to pay to go to this place. It doesn't really change all that much. Find the availability if you can. If you don't, you don't. But now we're seeing like the web specials, the transfer bonuses, the seasonal sales that all these airlines throw out, and you create the situation where like the more of them that do it, the more it's going to pull the other ones to participate as well, because they just look like they're just, the only store that's not doing Black Friday sales. So I think you'll see more of that kind of gamification around redemptions and getting more value of your points on like, specials and like inventory that they want to move, and that's going to be wonderful for travelers as airlines continue to lean into that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, especially as loyalty programs become so valuable for airlines. They want to capture as much market share there. And if I'm looking at transferring my points to Air France or United, and Air France is consistently beating them on the routes that I want to fly and has better availability, which is typically, like, both of those are typically true statements, that's me as a customer who loves United actively choosing another airline. I think the one exception is and always is going to be Delta, because Delta has, for as much as we talk about the lack of the quality of their program in the reward space, kind of with the exception of their domestic award sales generally, somehow that does not click with my brain. And I hear the Delta loyalists out there in the comments already. Delta has done a good job of building loyalty that is with people regardless of the value of their program. A lot of people choose like non-points and miles people, but like we'll call them regular travelers or business travelers, will choose a program that they think is going to be the most valuable to them. And I generally don't think that's why most people choose Delta. Their award rates are generally pretty high, but they've done a good job of building that customer loyalty separate from the awards program. Whereas I think other airlines like American and United are much more tied to their either their awards program, or if it's just the major airline from your home airport, of course. But because of that, I think that we'll see them trying to incentivize people to come over to their programs more, especially as international competition is ramping up.
Yeah. For my portal booking home from Sicily, I almost didn't even run an award search on Delta, because I'm like, there's no way that this is going to be worth it. But I did, just for fun. Care to guess how many miles they wanted for a one-way business class ticket from Sicily to the U.S. back to Columbus per person?
400,000?
400,000. It's like, wow.
So 2 million points?
Yes. Who's that? Is anyone actually paying that? You know what? When I get on that flight, I'm like, excuse me, did you pay 400,000 Delta miles for this? Like, here's my card. We can help.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, and I'm like, I felt almost dumb. Like, I didn't need to run that search, but I did. So anyway, dear listener, now you know exactly what's going to happen in 2025, both for myself, for Travis, for the airline industry and points and miles industry as a whole. You heard it here first. Hold us to the predictions, maybe hold us to some of our resolutions, not all, but we're going to do our best to get the most out of it, and we hope that you do too. And to kind of close things out, we want to remind you, it is a marathon, not a sprint. It's fun to do these kind of year in review type episodes, because you don't realize how much has really kind of changed about this hobby until you kind of look back and make predictions like, wow, transfer bonuses didn't used to be that big of a thing. And like Flying Blue and Air France was this fringe program 3 years ago that very few people used, and things do kind of change pretty quickly. So I encourage all of you to kind of go on that journey yourself. Reflect on your own 2025 points and miles resolutions. Please share them here in the comments or in the group with our podcast post here on YouTube. We want to hear about your own as well. Tell us about your 2024 in review. What did you do well? What mistakes did you make? What did you learn? We're curious to hear how all of you kind of think through this as well. No matter the mistakes or the resolutions, we are here to help you make the most of your points and miles this year and every year going forward. Best way to do that is to sign up for 10x Travel Plus. That is our paid membership program. It gives you 2 one-on-one consults per year on Zoom. You can ask your questions. You can come in and talk about your resolutions if you want. Whatever you'd like, we're here to help you with those consults, as well as you get 1 free award booking per year. Perhaps the biggest, most important thing you can do is sign up for My 10x. That is our free web tool, which also has our enhanced course in there. It is completely free to use. You can sync all of your cards. It'll tell you all of your points totals. It'll recommend next cards. It just takes the entire points and miles game and puts it on easy mode, so that when you're looking back on your 2025 in review, the one mistake that you won't list is not signing up for My 10x. It's going to make your entire points and miles strategy that much more effective. And of course, be sure to join our Facebook group, where over 350,000 people come together to share their own points and miles knowledge, resolutions, vote on our own resolutions as well, and just kind of generally have fun. And check out that free course as well in My 10x to kind of teach you the basics of all of this. If it feels like we're speaking a different language, but you really want to get the benefits that we're talking about, that's the best place to start. Linked in the show notes or at my.10xtravel.com. So for all of us here at 10x Travel, Travis and myself here on this episode, I'm Bryce. Thanks for listening to Take Off, a Points and Miles podcast by 10x Travel. We will see you next time. Bye now.
Well, we'll see you next year.
Next year. Yes, that's true. We will see you then, unless someone happens to be in Portugal or the Seychelles at the time. We might actually see you in person, in which case say hello.
Same.
But we'll definitely see you next episode, and we'll talk to you then.